So they say you can't cheat death, but can you? Let's explore death's grand design as we take a look at the complete Final Destination franchise. So coming to us from New Line Cinema, which is the house that Freddy Krueger built, comes another horror franchise that happens to have a very interesting origin, in that creators Glenn Morgan and James Wong had previously worked on The X-Files for several seasons as screenwriters, and the genesis of the idea of Final Destination was originally pitched as an episode of The X-Files that never happened to come to fruition. But when Glenn Morgan and James Wong decided to leave television and pursue feature films, they obviously took their idea, pitched it to New Line Cinema, and in March of 2000, we got the very first Final Destination. And directed by James Wong and co-written by Wong and Morgan, Final Destination really did hit a great chord at this moment in time, garnering a $112 million box office take off of a $23 million budget, and really kind of came along at a very interesting time where, like, the month before we got Scream 3, so that franchise seemed like it just closed out, and now you're moving into a different era of horror of sorts, and just a very different type of horror movie, that it's almost like a slasher film without a physical slasher icon there to really kind of drive forth the kills. It's very much an original idea of having death itself stalking and hunting down all these people in a completely invisible type of fashion. It's just a very interesting idea that you could definitely absolutely have seen this as an episode of The X-Files, which would probably have been extremely interesting, but as its own film, Final Destination is a very solid type of horror movie that uses a lot of great things to its advantage with great suspense and mood and stuff like that, but there are a few things that are fantastic, but some things that don't strike as strongly to me. But in general, Final Destination, the first film, is a very good horror movie that crafts a very good and interesting story around its characters and its concept, and casts everything pretty much very extremely well. You get Devon Sawa here as Alex Browning, who is a very solid lead for this thing. It very much fits into sort of a very classic archetype. I could definitely see the character of Alex Browning portrayed by Sawa as a very strong corollary to Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street, that there is a vulnerability there, but there's also a very strong proactive nature with this character, that there is fear, that he's afraid of things, he's aware of things going on around him, and it's also that whole thing of like, he knows there's something more paranormal, supernatural at work here, and it's nothing that's really tangible. You can't really get anyone to grasp the concept of it, but he's always being looked at with crooked eyes or whatnot, so it's very much in that type of fashion that you see from a lot of classic horror heroines and heroes overall, that they're kind of wrapped up in something that they can't explain, but they got to fight and try and do whatever they can to overcome all this, even though everyone, like the cops, are after him because they think he's responsible for the deaths. So it's a very interesting type of thing that you have Alex Browning, this character, going through the whole thing, being very scared and very aware and very frightened, but he's also very brave in a certain way because he is proactive. He's taking steps towards whatever case he has to try to avoid death, avert death and everything, cheat death for him and his friends overall, and be very strong and determined and assertive and everything. I thought Devon Sawa just puts forth a very strong performance here that really makes a lot of people view him as one of the great leads of this whole franchise. Very much a heartfelt, strong character, and also Ellie Larter is also a fantastic actress. I thought she did an excellent performance here as the character of Clear Rivers, that she brings also a very tough type of quality to this character that, again, she does show some fear and whatnot, but she's very much a kind of tough, hard type of character in a certain way, but there's a tenderness, there's a softness in there, so there's a great degrees of dimensionality with these characters that are really brought forth by extremely talented actors to make sure that you care about the characters in this film when death comes stalking them and everything, that you're very much afraid for them, that you're not looking to have people like die off because they're bad characters portrayed by underwhelming actors. These are very strong characters, written very well and performed very well, and Ellie Larter just adds so much great weight and strong, bold quality to her that I just felt everything that she brought forth in this film worked very, very well. and just really just held a lot of things together very strong, that it is almost like an equal level between her and Devon Sawa in this film, as two very strong forces at the forefront of this film. But you get people like Kerr Smith and Sean William Scott and a few other people in this film that just continue to bring forth very strong, distinct characters that hold their weight. Some of them are a little bit kind of an asshole, like Kerr Smith's character, but there's still something in there that slightly redeems characters here and there, and as you go along, they develop and change a little bit. So it's like everyone kind of forges bonds and everything, and you still kind of care for these characters as things go along. And that's a good sign of good writing. And the X-Files is definitely a series that had a hell of a lot of good writing. So this is in very capable hands in that type of way, and obviously put forth and grabbed a lot of great actors here to really just make everything function at its highest level. But I felt like the police storyline just felt a little kind of flat to me. It just really didn't have the gravity or the compelling nature it really needed to. I just felt it was a little bit monotonous, a little bit kind of going through the motions type of thing. Works were fine in the story context. I just felt like the execution or maybe the performances just felt a little dull and flat. They just didn't really do anything for me that you could have a bit of a stronger, more rock solid, sort of maybe charismatic actor to really kind of bring some of those scenes with a little bit more life, a little bit more interesting, compelling nature. But generally, I could do without it. But regardless of that, we get into the horror elements of Final Destination, which is the fact of the matter that it is a horror movie. You want to know how well it really does execute all this stuff, and really is the great thing about this film, that it uses so much great build-up to all the deaths in this thing, that it has great subtlety of suspense and a little bit of tension here and there, that everything is very gradual in its build-up in most of the deaths. You know, there's a couple of deaths in this thing where the shit just hits you out of nowhere, and just it's there to just shock the audience back into their senses and whatnot. Just like, it's still a great payoff. Like, you can have a lot of horror films that just do jump scares. Things jump out of nowhere and booze scare and everything. It sucks because it's not really skillful. But where it is that they do with this type of effect in the film, this type of horror, terror, jump out of your skin type of stuff, it still works so well because you've got a lot of thrilling stuff going on to the build-up of that, and you see like I said, still a little bit of subtlety there. It's still laying a visual seed in the audience's mind that there's something, a little extra element there that's going to cause some kind of wild card, and someone's going to get decapitated or hit by a bus, which I've seen done so many times since this film, and never has been done as well as it was done in Final Destination. And I'll get to it again because they tried to replicate this in one of the sequels. Sucked. But regardless of that, the suspense, the mood, the atmosphere that is used here to really kind of add a little sense of foreboding, a little bit of sense of mood, a little bit of just an other presence there in the film, whatnot, is really well done by James Wong. I think he just hit all that stuff on a very good level. In general, I thought the film just works very, very well, that it has a lot of great inventive type of ideas with how it kills people, how it offs people, just everything that this film does, it does it very well in the concept that it explores. And of course, Tony Todd, having this already established horror icon come into another start of a franchise was really, really good. That you don't get a whole lot of them, that this character of William Bloodworth is a coroner, the mortician, who has this bizarre, morbid knowledge of how death's design works and everything, supposedly, because a lot of this stuff doesn't quite work out so well as you go through the franchise, but just the fact that he has this certain knowledge and this fantastic aura he has around, because he's Tony Todd, the guy just knows how to soak in presence and just use that wonderfully deep force to just create such a mood when he's talking about death and just having a certain zeal about things. Fantastic. How he delivers his lines, how he adds so much more aura around everything. It's fantastic. And there's so many little types of fan theories about who he really is. If he is just a mortician, or maybe he is death himself, or he's maybe something else. Maybe he has something more of a supernatural tie to things. It's a wonderful little ambiguity to the whole thing that never is nailed down in the whole franchise, but it's great to have that sort of thing there to give it that aura, that mystique overall, that just aids further in the entire concept of the franchise. it's just great how this film works with the foreshadowing that it has. Like I said, uses some very subtle type of visual cues and the right timing too. That the film just uses all these little elements. Subtlety is the heart of a very good horror movie, and this film definitely utilizes that on such a fantastic level. That everything that they use in that type of way, and the inventive ideas that they have with how the kills go along, the great little build-ups that I have, and the fantastic payoffs overall, I think it's great. And even the ending of the film just has another great slam bang type of exhilarating thrill for you too. So it's like a horror film that just delivers and delivers and delivers, and just hits you with a great, interesting concept that just really can see how this film really kind of just sparked off with audiences and earned that $112 million worldwide. That just like it works so very well and just captures an imagination that type of way. Is like so many places you can go with this. And obviously, since it is such a fantastic success, New Line Cinema definitely wanted to capitalize and make a sequel for this. So in January of 2003, we got Final Destination 2. And off of a $26 million budget, only got back $90.4 million at the box office, so cost a little bit more, made a little bit less. And I have a slight theory about that, because for me, I didn't see a trailer release for this thing until a month before its release date. And even then, the trailer for it wasn't that fantastic. It really just kind of showed off the opening car crash sequence and didn't do a whole lot more to really kind of build up the anticipation for the film. So also being released in January is not always the best sign for a film's release. So a couple of things I think were contributing to not having it reach its full potential at the box office, because I don't think New Line did the best job of actually getting this thing out to the public and increasing its visibility. But James Wong and Glenn Morgan were not available at the time that New Line Cinema wanted to push forward with this sequel, so they got director David R. Ellis, who had been a second unit director for a long time, working with a lot of different people. And the fact of the matter is, Final Destination 2 takes things in a slightly tonally different type of way, and it's not terribly great of a horror movie, but Final Destination 2 is a very entertaining film that really kind of amps up the sort of startling gore type of quotient in this film, that it really is going for that startling factor for a lot of different things. It's really kind of amping up the horror in a type of way that is like just the gruesome nature of things, the gore and everything, the effects used, that type of stuff, and makes it a very strong film in the type of way that it really does kind of hit the ground running, because it's really kind of just getting off right on the right foot, going forward with everything, and keeping very tight, consistent momentum going with this film. It is very well paced, that just keeps things going and going and going, so you never get bored with this film. It never slows down too much to really kind of give you a great sense of suspense or build up, but it still delivers on a lot of good type of stuff. There's fantastic kills in this film, but generally with Final Destination 2, I think they did a lot of good, interesting things with this thing, that they took the basis of the concept in the first film and then added onto it, that all these characters in the film that are trying to avert death this time were supposed to die previously, but because all the people who got off of Flight 180 in the first film, all their stuff, their deaths and everything caused a ripple effect that altered everyone else's paths towards death. So now it's death trying to backtrack and backfill everything, trying to kind of seal the rift that all the stuff from Flight 180 opened up. So all the deaths that haven't happened is trying to correct them and put everything back on its original path. So it's a very interesting type of concept that they add into this thing that I think really makes it a very interesting sequel that does something right that a sequel should do. Not just do the same old thing, add something more to the mythology and expand on it, make it more interesting, so you have another twist into the tale that is very well executed. I think this film really kind of hits things off on a very good note that, like I said, the tone is very different. That it is not so much a slow build-up, it's very much a hit the ground running, fun thrill ride of a film that still has a lot of good characters in it. Obviously, we got Ali Larter back as Clear Rivers in a very different state of things, because since the ending of the last film, Alex Browning's died and all our other friends have died, so she's locked herself in a sanitarium, trying to just completely isolate herself from any type of threat, whatever, from death getting her, but it's like, not really any way to live, but the fact of the matter is, it's a very interesting and sort of natural progression for the character that she is much more hardened and maybe a little bit traumatized in a certain way, but is this character that just seems a little bit more harder, a little bit more gruff in a certain way, that this is a character that has been through some very trying type of stuff, seeing your friends avert death, and finally have death caught up to them. So it's very interesting that she is in this film, being brought in and trying to guide these new sets of characters along a proper path to try to avert things, try to learn from what she's done before. So it's very interesting that type of way. But H.A. Cook, I thought, was very good in the lead of this film, that she really holds everything together in a very good way, really kind of showing a very strong, sympathetic character that holds everything together in a very interesting way. A little bit different than the Alex Browning character, that she is, again, a little bit more still vulnerable, but just a different type of character in general, that it just feels like a character with a lot of compassion, a lot of different types of things going on with her, that it's just a very interesting character that is very well held up by this very talented actress that really conveys all the fear and the urgency of the situation extremely well throughout the whole run of the film. There's also a very intelligent character too. And then you get Michael Landis here, who is was actually, I was watching again, it's like I knew I recognized him, and then I checked his credits, like, he was Jimmy Olsen in the first season of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he is a very good actor. He does sell things very strongly in this film as the cop here in the film, that really kind of just brings a reliable, strong, level-headed quality to the film. There's not a guy who panics. The guy, when he sees danger, when he sees something going on that is hinky or whatnot, he really kind of keeps his cool and thinks very clearly. So it's nice to have a character like that who can think straight and keep his cool and keep things on a straight and narrow type of path, but still carry a lot of good sort of relatable type of qualities within his emotional range to make him a character that you do care for as the film goes along. And the supporting cast still maintains a certain charismatic style to them, even though a lot of the characters aren't terribly well developed or not terribly dimensional, but they still have a very distinct quality that just continues to entertain and interest the audience, whatnot. That again, it is a very strongly, tightly paced film that nothing lingers too long. You don't get bogged down by anything. Everything just keeps moving along at a very quick pace. So you got a lot of very sharp type of supporting cast here that just rolls with everything very well. And I think everyone just inhabits their characters very strongly, sharply. I think everything just holds together in a very strong way. But definitely one of the things that became the sort of standard for each one of these sequels, trying to up the ante from the last one, was the big disaster opening sequence. And obviously with the first one, we had that great airplane disaster and everything, which was very intense, very quick, and just hit all the buttons and just made it very, just jars the hell out of you. This one, they go with a fantastic highway crash sequence, which is extremely elaborate with a lot of great spectacle to it. A lot of big fire, a lot of big set pieces in the whole thing, with the logs just bursting through the police car and the fiery explosions and the taker truck, all this type of stuff. It is a big, very elaborate sequence that absolutely just delivers so damn much. I think it's one of the absolutely most memorable things about this film. But with all the kills with this thing, with the first one, with the guy coming down the fire escape and the thing smashing him in the eye, or the guy who gets ripped apart into several pieces from the razor wire, or various other ones, just really kind of hit things on a very interesting level. And they still use a little bit of subtlety and misdirection here and there, and just trying to do a little bit of an elaborate setup here and there that really kind of does pay off in great ways that I think they do very much honor the first film in that type of way, while still moving into a much more fun, exhilarating type of direction overall that I think, in general, Final Destination 2, for a long time, I just felt like this was one of the best films of the franchise. For me, it's the most entertaining one overall, that just brings a lot of just great things about it. You can just sit back, relax, have a great fun time with this film. You don't have to get too soaked into a mood or suspense, because there isn't terribly much of that. But I think with a great fun factor and some really good characters that are portrayed by charismatic actors who really just bring their all for everything, and just some very interesting concepts that add new twists to the whole tale, I think Final Destination 2 is a strong film that does, again, take things in a little slightly tonally different direction, but still very fun, very entertaining. I really much enjoy it, but obviously still want to push on. It's still a successful franchise, even though it made less money. still gets back a whole ton of money at the box office, so it's extremely profitable. So Final Destination 3 came to us in February of 2006, bringing back James Wong and Glenn Morgan to the mix, and off of a $25 million budget, brought back $117.7 million, so really kind of put things back on the level of the first film in terms of box office take, but not quite so much in quality, in my opinion, because I think this is definitely the first big mistake in the franchise, but not the biggest overall, that let's say that the first opening sequence of the film really kind of does have a good elaborate type of setup, but aftermath of the whole thing really kind of comes off as a terrible carbon copy of the first film, that once the character sees all the visions, everything, sees how everyone's supposed to die and freaks out, you get almost a beat for beat, almost line for line rehash of the exact same scene from the first film, with characters saying almost the exact same lines, freaking out almost the exact same way. It's like, it feels like the same fucking movie, that you're carbon copying the first film and showing a certain sense of laziness in that type of fashion. And that would not be the last time we'd see a certain amount of laziness in this film, in my opinion. But the opening sequence with the roller coaster, it is very well done. It's very exciting, very thrilling. Really just, I don't know if it entirely tops the previous film, but I'd probably at least on par with the elaborateness, the whole kind of just having on a roller coaster, which is extremely relatable for a lot of people. And you do hear about certain accidents on roller coasters, and it'd probably be just as terrifying as this, if not fit terribly with the laws of physics that this film shows. But if I want to nitpick that, we'll go on for like 10 hours nitpicking these films about little things that don't make all that terrible sense with physics and all logic and whatnot. But regardless of that, the whole front sequence is very well executed, but characters in this film, aside from Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is a very, very capable and very talented actress who would also get settled with being the lead of the prequel to John Carpenter's The Thing several years after this, no one else in the film really kind of terribly kind of hits things off in a very fantastic fashion, because there are some horribly obnoxious characters and just douchey characters in this film too. They're just some dumb, irritating characters you just do not want to spend a second with. There's the two girls who are just completely nose up in the air type of vapid snobs, like you don't want to spend a second with these people. There's even like jocks or stuff like that. People are just dumb motherfuckers you don't want to spend any time with. And like, why are you putting these types of characters on screen? One, they're better screenwriters of this and know how to write characters that are more quality than this. Obviously, they showed that with the first film. Didn't show it with this film terribly well, because even though Mary Elizabeth Winstead is a fantastically talented actress, puts on a very good performance, showing a lot of good emotion in this film, that she does just bring a lot more substance into the performance, and the character, she really just spends the whole film with one emotional state. She just pretty much weeps and grieves throughout every single scene. There's barely a scene where she's not crying or in one single emotional state. So it's like, there's not a lot of stretching of variety for the character, but they kind of pull it in different directions and show a lot of versatility with it. It's very much the exact same thing throughout every single scene. So it makes for a very kind of a character that doesn't go anywhere in the whole film. It's just completely scared and weeping and grieving. So it's like, she does extremely well, I'll say that, but there's not a lot of anything else there to really kind of push things forward. It just not that fantastically written or directed in a type of way, just like the performance adds something more than what they'll allow the character to become in the film. But you can definitely feel a lot of empathy with this character, and she just holds and carries the grief and the guilt of this whole character very, very well. And there's like one or two characters in the film that do add a little something, like the character portrayed by Ryan Merriman in the film that works very much opposite Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think he adds a genuine, nice quality to the film, but he obviously isn't bringing forth a great performance to really kind of evoke anything else, that if it wasn't propped up next to her, it would really kind of sink the film down to a certain bland, mediocre level. And I thought the character of Ian McKinley, just the performance of the actor puts forth, just adds a certain charisma, a certain wit to the character. And though he's not terribly likable, he still has this sharpness to how he delivers his lines, and a certain snarky type of quality. And he takes a little bit more of a different turn in the film later on. So it's slightly entertaining, but it's not like they're fantastically written characters. They just kind of service the plot, and this is really the film where you start seeing the turn towards they're just kind of slacking off the characters and really kind of showcasing more of the spectacle and the gore and all that type of stuff, that they're letting things kind of fall off with the quality of things and just trying to blind you and distract you with a certain amount of fantastic, overwrought and overworked death sequences, because this film really does kind of overwork the death sequences like some weird Rube Goldberg device in this thing that is so overworked to an extent that it's just like, death hasn't been this too overworked, so extremely ridiculously elaborate with the way it sets up things, where there's like a dozen little things that have to go into the chain reaction before someone gets impaled by a couple of things or whatnot. Just like, and just a little too much. It's just like the way the first two films worked, with just a little bit of subtlety, just lay the seeds and let the suspense or whatnot just build up, really worked very well. In this one, it just, man, they just go they're getting a little too much of a glutton, that type of thing. They really kind of make things elaborate and make things really kind of show off how smart and clever they can really make all these things really kind of chain reaction to some kind of gruesome death or whatnot. It's just like, it's just a little too much, that they're focusing too much in the wrong places, not enough in the right places with this film. I'll say that there are some good sequences with the deaths in this thing, like, yeah, the tanning bed sequence, yeah, that's very impressive what they do, even though it is kind of silly and ridiculous, and probably a tanning bed really can't end up malfunctioning that type of way. But again, like, if I wanted to nitpick stuff, we'd be here all day. But regardless of that, it is a very good sequence that adds a very entertaining type of quality to things, and I definitely like the nail gun death. It's just like, whenever someone gets hit with a nail gun in the film, in any horror film, whatnot, just like, it's very interesting, you know. It's just always very gruesome, very gory, and it's always very satisfying in a certain way, because it's just a totally brutal, violent type of death, and just it has that shock, startle factor in the film that does work effectively. I think there's a couple of good deaths in this thing that work fairly well, but when you got a lot of characters you just don't give a rat's fucking ass about, you just start getting a little bored with the film. Just like, it's also starting to get a bit formulaic here too, that, you know, they're just, this is where the point of the franchise, where it's just kind of, again, laying back on its formula. In the last film, the second film, added a new twist to the whole tale. Now it's just going back to the same old thing, just running through the motions and everything, and just kind of working off of the just laying back on the mythology and not actually doing any extra work to make it a more interesting film. And even the new idea that they try to weave into this storyline, where you see all the foreshadowing through the photographs that were taken by the character of Wendy, portrayed by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, at the carnival, really doesn't make any damn sense, because all the photographs were taken prior to the roller coaster accident. It was supposed to kill all of these characters, but now you'll look back at the photographs, and now they're supposed to foreshadow deaths that weren't supposed to happen in the first place. So it doesn't make any sense, because they're foreshadowing deaths that are only occurring now after they altered Death's design, but the photographs were taken before they did alter Death's design. So you see how this concept doesn't make any damn sense, because it's poorly written. It's a nice concept, I'll say that if it was executed properly and it was put in the right place in the narrative linear storyline after the actual alteration of Death's design happened, when they walked off of the roller coaster ride and things were changed, that would work. But since they put it in the way they did, it doesn't make any damn sense to me. You can see how this thing isn't that terribly well written from screenwriters who also wrote the first film and did a good job with it and introduced some good ideas. Now that you're not really kind of nailing things down, it's really kind of a bit sloppy, a bit lazy, like I said. Things are just not connecting because they're not well thought out, they're not well connected, they're not supported by very good characters, and things just overall just don't really kind of come together in a very good, intelligent package here. There's, like, again, good ideas, but they're not well written, they're not well executed to really kind of come in and make things feel like a tight, solid type of thing. It's a very loose and scattered type of storyline with a script that just doesn't hold together very strongly. And generally, I felt that Final Destination 3 was kind of a bland movie because you got a lot of shallow characters, and it felt like the film lacked a certain amount of momentum despite having a tight pace. It just never felt like it really kind of went anywhere. They're just like, again, formulaic loop of going the exact same three-step process of like, you get the setup, the kill, and then you gotta start moving on to the next thing. It doesn't go anywhere. It just keeps going round and round circles, getting to a certain point where it just basically ends. And, I mean, it's interesting that, too bad this didn't happen, because it would have been at least an interesting thing that would have happened at the end of the film. That apparently the original idea when they were shooting the ending, because audiences didn't like the original ending that they had, wherever it was, but the fact of the matter was that the characters portrayed by Michael Landis and H.A. Cook from the second film were supposed to show up on the subway at the end of this film to kind of close everything up into a tight package, so all the survivors that you've had up to this point are wiped out, and kind of say that maybe sort of this is the end of the thing, but obviously we know better than that. But it would have been interesting, but wouldn't have saved the film in any type of way, because I just think, again, it's just sloppily written. I don't think it just has any really great strong elements in the script. It could have been good if either you had more time, or they just had to be able to tighten up and shore up the concepts in the script, or whatever it was. It just felt like where it is, maybe they rushed the whole thing, trying to get it out at a certain point in time. I don't know. They took 3 years to make it from the release of the last film, so there was enough time to develop something good and strong, but wherever it was, they weren't able to do it. But regardless, you still had a $117 million box office take off of a $25 million budget, so tons of money. Let's make another movie. So, we get the film that is suspiciously titled without a number at the end of it, because they want to drive home the idea that this would be the absolutely last film in the franchise, which we've seen it before. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Friday's Dead, the final nightmare. Never really tends to stick. But we got in 2009, The Final Destination. And once again helmed up by David R. Ellis from Final Destination 2, released in August of 2009, with a budget of $40 million, guarding back $186 million, and presented in 3D, and it was the last major 3D film I saw, because this movie sucks. I hate this movie. When I saw this theatrically in 3D, it sucked. The 3D sucked. The movie sucked. I was dead with the franchise with this film because it was shit. I don't like this film, obviously. I just watched it again today and it's like, man, was this movie bad. Man, is this movie not good. And you can see it early on in this film that, again, you've got another big opening sequence with disaster at the racetrack. Man, is the CGI in this movie fucking awful. God damn, I was watching this shit with a $40 million budget. How is the CGI in this film worse than the CGI in any of the 3 previous movies when you've got more money pumped into this thing? I don't understand it. How does it look worse? Almost every fucking effect shot is awful. These foreshadowing sequences, the little fucking CGI transition shots, are like something out of a damn Asylum film. That's that quality of shit. This thing looks awful. The CGI is terrible in this film. I don't care if you're watching it 3D or 2D, it looks terrible. I mean, this big racetrack spectacle of all this shit flying everywhere and all the people getting bludgeoned with gore and everything. Man, this thing just falls flat for me. There's no suspense in this film. One, all the foreshadowing of the thing with those CGI transitions or just bludgeoning you over the head just kills any suspense. The foreshadowing is just so damn blunt in this film. Just gives away everything. Just leaves nothing to the imagination. No sort of subtlety in this film to really kind of build up any type of tension, suspense, anything that really made the franchise really good and interesting in the first place. This film it's just so obvious with its setups and just everything it does. It's just beating you over the head with every fucking thing it's got going on. Man, this film just doesn't know anything about subtlety. I just did not enjoy this film, but let's go back a little bit here, because just step back for a little bit off the fire and just say, there's mainly like one bright spot in this film, and that's Mykelti Williamson, who is a very good, talented actor in this whole thing. That I've seen him all the way back to the pilot of Miami Vice. He was a cop in Michael Mann's Heat. Every time I see this guy, he's a very talented actor, brings a lot of good qualities to a performance, a lot of very relatable and likable qualities to a charming type of character, and I think he does a good job in this film, even though the material really kind of sucks in general, but he just brings a little something extra to his performance, but he's not even the lead of this film. Every actor in this film just doesn't bring anything extra to the table. Some of the characters are just absolutely dumb, flat, stereotypical type of stuff. You got the redneck racist, or you got some kind of mechanic jock or something like that. Where it is, just dumb characters that don't bring anything. They're just there for cannon fodder for the whole splatter aspect of the whole film. They don't bring anything. You don't relate to them. You don't give a crap about them. They're just there to fill the gore quotient. And that's one of the worst things that one of these franchises could just devolve into, just like slapping random characters on the screen just to get splattered all over the screen. No, that's the worst fucking shit you can devolve into. Just like, you've hit the bottom of the barrel if you're getting to that level. Just like, you need something better going on. But this movie just started making my brain go numb. It's just like, there's this same old shit. Like I said with the last film, it gets so this film gets even more formulaic, because there's just absolutely no effort put behind anything here. At least with the last film, they tried some things, but like I said, really was kind of sloppy and didn't form up and whatnot. This thing, same old fucking shit. No one's trying with this thing. No one's trying to make an interesting story, not trying to make any good characters. The thing is so thin on plot, it only runs 82 minutes. Can't even push itself to be 90 minutes for a nice solid runtime. It's got a short, about like 10 minutes of screen time, where you could use some of that to develop some decent characters, which this film is absent with. And though some of the characters are improved for the last film, there aren't so many vapid, obnoxious, idiotic douchebag type of characters, but it's a lot of characters you just don't generally give anything about, because it doesn't give you anything to care about with these characters. It doesn't really develop them or anything. And again, the setups with the damn kills are just so blatantly fucking obvious. It's like nothing to really kind of like get you on edge with anything. It's so fucking obvious exactly what they're setting up to do, and they're might be not as elaborate as the last film, but it's still like, you can see it coming a mile away. There's no build up, there's no suspense. It's just like, you just wait for it to happen just to get it out of the fucking way. I didn't care. They even try to redo the bus hit from the first film. It's like, you are so unoriginal that you have to riff off a kill from the first movie. God damn it, you're just showing absolutely blatantly we have no originality, we have no new ideas. Let's just recycle shit that was good in the first film and not do it nearly as well. This movie just has nothing new or satisfying to offer in any type of way. It's like the film is just so desperate to give you some kind of 3D eye candy effects or whatnot. It's just like, it's distracting, it's obnoxious. There's a subtle way, there's a good way to do that type of stuff, and there's a bad way of doing that stuff, and this is the bad way of doing it. Just throwing it at the screen and not doing anything that's smart or clever, whatnot. Just like, I just didn't care for it. And it's just like, it adds nothing to the mythology of this franchise. It doesn't try to do anything. It's just like, again, dead, flat, boring formulaic shit that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't develop any characters, doesn't have a good story. That's it. The Final Destination, or Final Destination 4 for easy reference here, it's just a cheap shit fucking movie. It's just like, this is the bottom of the barrel for anything that's a horror film, you know? It's just like, it's trying to be funny and comical and everything. It's trying to make everything just, it's not doing it like Final Destination 2 did, where it brought some humor, some exhilarating and entertainment value to the whole thing with a kind of fun and thrill ride. This is just like, shit. This is just shit. That's the easiest way I can put it. It's badly written. It's not terribly well directed. I mean, it looks good, and that's probably the best thing you can say. Just on a cinematography level, obviously, CGI is really kind of shit. And just like, no, this is why I just stopped with this franchise, even though they still made another film after it, what I'm going to get to shortly. I just like, it's gone to shit. I've seen the third movie, I've seen the fourth movie. They got progressively worse on a very drastic downward spiral. I'm done with it. It's like, you've gone so far into the shitter, I don't care at this point. So, in 2011, when the next film in the franchise was released, I didn't care. I didn't go see it. But our friend recommended it. He did say that he went to see it and he enjoyed it quite a bit. So eventually I did see Final Destination 5. And finally we get some brand new fresh blood behind the scenes at this film, because we got a brand new director in Stephen Quayle and the screenwriter of Eric Herzler, who outside of the film hasn't done great work, co-writing The Nightmare on Elm Street with Leslie Strick, and writing the prequel to The Thing, which I mentioned earlier with Ms. Winstead and everything. But this film really hits it off on the right mark, because it's strange that you could consider the fifth film in a horror franchise, or very most any franchise, to be possibly the best one of the whole franchise, because you look at Halloween 5 and Friday the 13th Part 5 and The Dream Child from Elm Street. All the fifth films in the franchise are not particularly good films. Most of them are considered some of the worst shit in the franchise, but Final Destination 5 takes everything back to its roots. Tonally, it goes back much to the tone of the first film, going back to a much more serious, very grounded feel for everything, very genuine type of quality, very strong tone of everything. Everything is taken a much more serious type of fashion overall, which is exactly the perfect thing to make this the damn good movie that I feel it really, really is. That everything that to do with this film just hits off on the perfect right note. And great first note with this film, with the best disaster sequence of this franchise. What they do with the effects of this thing, the scale of it, everything is so excellently executed. CGI at work in this thing is absolutely spectacular, that it all is absolutely perfectly realistic, photorealistic in every type of way. I was just awestruck with just what they did with the scale of this, how everything looks, how everything's just worked out overall. Just an amazing sequence that just works so perfectly. It is exhilarating, it's intense, thrilling, that just like edge of your seat, heart pounding, nail biting type of sequence that just gets your heart pumping all the way through this thing. Just even when they come out of the vision premonition sequence and you see the change, the alteration, it is still exhilarating to an extent. Just like, it's just so well executed on every single level. It's like this, it's just intense, it's just captivating, just like, oh man, I really, really like this thing. Seeing it again, this is my third time seeing this film, and I just absolutely love what they do with this. And again, you start off the film with good, solid characters in this thing, that you're getting characters who are just more genuine, more grounded, more realistic. You just get a real good sense from pretty much every one of these characters, that they just have a very relatable type of connectivity to them overall. That, yeah, you got the character of Isaac, who's a little bit more of a, it's like he's kind of an idiot or whatnot, but kind of a charming one. So it works that way. But everyone else in the film just does a very, very good job with their performances. I thought Nicholas D'Agostino is the lead of the film, did a really good job. Again, he brings a vulnerability to the character, but he's also a proactive protagonist for the film. So again, you get that mix of a guy who is a mix of fear, but he also is a guy that is just kind of throwing a little bit of caution to the wind. That is like he's not going to let the specter of all this dominate his life. He's not going to live in total fear, so he's keep moving forward with his life. But it's that very interesting thing that you keep these characters moving forward with a life, that they have established life, that they're still living with all this stuff surrounding them too. So Nicholas D'Agostino does a very good job in this role as Sam, that he does have a very likable, honest, and genuine quality, which is, I can say, for pretty much every character in this film. But The guy who really steals the show is Miles Fisher as the character of Peter here. That the amount of grief and the weight and the guilt that this character carries around, just everything he has, is amazing with just the way he carries all this emotion bottled up within him. It's just fantastic. It's like possibly the best performance of the whole franchise of what he just brings to the depth and the texture and overall intensity that this character shows, that he has a lot of pent-up anger and frustration and just the grief of having the love of his life just die in front of him and all these other people survived. It just gnaws at him throughout the whole film, and you just see this deterioration of this character from a very talented actor who is also apparently a musician too, so widely talented individual here with Miles Fisher. That just, I thought what he did with the character of Peter was just absolutely incredible, what he brought forth. I just ate it up. I just wanted to see more of this. He just so perfectly good in this role. He just brought it all the way through, and just interesting everything, how this character moves along and the little ideas that you get weaved into this storyline that save us a little something for later, but we get the return of the character of William Bloodworth, the whole mortician and everything portrayed by Tony Todd, adding another little idea, a little twist that someone who changes death's design, the path of death, could switch places, take someone else's life, and live out the rest of their lifetime. It's that sort of thing that this character of Peter is warping through his mind, of like trying to rationalize that type of stuff in his head. Just is a great sort of just conflict this character and actor just brings into this performance and everything. It's just the absolute gold in this film, in my opinion, that on a high level that he's bringing it. And I was so impressed watching it again from the first time I watched it. Excellent performance from him, but everyone just brings, again, distinctive characters with a very settled, down-to-earth, low-key type of thing that just feels fresh, is what this film feels like. Because like I said with the last two films, it just fell into a trap of formula, that everything was just so well set that they just fell back on the mythology of the first film and a little bit of the second film, and just like the same characters finally out with the same stories, and just like it's the exact same exposition, all those other films going through the same old motions, learning about the same old design and everything. This goes along on a different path, because the big hook of this film, the thing that is very extremely subtle and doesn't get fully revealed and paid off until the end, is that Final Destination 5 is a prequel to the first film. And so you get a completely different type of thing that these characters can't research what happened before, because this happens before all that stuff actually happens. So you can't have them go on the internet and find out all the information about the premonitions and the visions and Flight 180 and all this type of stuff and just lay back on what was happened before. All these characters have to go through these revelations on their own in a very organic type of way. And just like, it's very, I like how they do it in this film, that because you get character development, that they're not just running through the same old thing of trying to stop the next death, trying to figure out the next design, figure out the next piece of the path and everything. These characters are going along on their lives, developing their characters, developing the emotions and the relationships between everyone, moving along forward with their own lives, and all this stuff is happening around them and gradually works into understanding exactly what is going on here. So it's like the formula doesn't dominate the film. The characters rediscover the formula because it is a prequel, so you don't have that stuff to lay back on. You got to find a way to introduce it in a brand new, fresh type of fashion. And I think they did absolutely exquisitely with this film. And just overall, they just have good characters in this film that just feel fleshed out. They feel real. They don't feel like such cardboard cutouts of just stereotypes and whatnot. It just feels like very solid, well-rounded characters that you just connect with and you feel for in this film. And that's just exactly what you needed. This is a breath of fresh air for me, that I think they took everything that worked in the previous films, throughout all the shit that didn't work at all the shit that was just wrong, whether it was tonally or just idea-wise or whatever it was. They crafted a very good script that just worked all around and got some very good talents to portray these characters in great ways while still having your moments of humor and levity and whatnot to pepper things out and make it an entertaining film too. But just the fact that you get very good written characters with good cast, great way to do it. And just kind of sad that this is the last film in the franchise because you got it right. You got it right on the money. And if you did it again and again, fantastic. But let's just say that there's even more to this film, obviously, because we haven't even gotten to any of the kills yet. And it's like, again, opening sequence is fantastic. And they still follow that up with some very clever type of kills. I really like the laser eye surgery scene. It's very tense. It's very suspenseful. And you even get the fantastic kill of Candace, who is the gymnast. It is such a masterfully crafted scene. Just how the suspense and the tension just gradually builds up in the whole thing. And just like every time you hear the creaking of that parallel bar, just with the shot on the little hinge or whatnot, just like you never know what exactly is going to go wrong at any point in time in this sequence. How that little screw on the bar and everything is really kind of playing into everything. Who's going to step on it? How is it going to just everything? The little water and the exposed wire, everything just, man. How they craft these sequences, again, goes back to everything that was done with the first film, but I think it's done with even tighter suspense and tension. I just think everything just enhanced, amplified, and just done in an amazingly fantastic fashion with a lot of these kills. I even like how the acupuncture one goes along. It just, again, it kind of feeds a little bit into like something like they did in Final Destination 2, where it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more exhilarating type of stuff, but just still has a great slam bang type of thing at the end of it. Just like a lot of the great payoffs just like hit on such a fantastic, just, oh man, just like startle the shit out of you. And just in the best ways that you get the great build up and it just hits you just so well. I just think so much of what they do with this film, it's just so well, beautifully crafted, including the fantastic cinematography in this film. I thought this was by far the best looking film in the franchise. Just how everything just has that slight sort of subdued lighting, this subdued look to it. Just fantastic shadowy type of cinematography on display in some sequences, and just the sort of blue cast the thing has, just like beautifully visual tone that is used here, and just some absolutely gorgeous lighting in so many sequences. Just everything is done here with great camera movement. Everything that is done is just so beautiful to me. I just thought everything that director Stephen Quayle did, the screenwriter did, everyone involved in this thing just did a fantastic job on it. It's like, even the CGI in the opening credit sequence is far superior than anything that you saw in the fourth film by miles. Just like, even the opening credit sequence kills the first film and nothing's even happened yet. I just think this is a superbly crafted piece of horror that just uses suspense and tension and gory payoffs with everything wrapped up with some very, very substantive characters, and just takes some great time to develop its story, develop its ideas and its characters and everything it has on such a beautifully wonderful level that I'd always like for this film to be longer. I wanted more of this. I wanted more of these characters, more of that build up and suspense and tension, and the climax of the film just takes on a very different style that you saw in any of the previous films. That, again, is not a direct avoiding the specter of death. It's that whole idea that if you take the life of someone who wasn't supposed to die, you get supposedly their own lifetime added onto yours. So you got a great sort of psycho thriller sequence at the end of this thing where the character of Peter is hunting his own friends. The girlfriend of the character of Sam is like, why did the person I love deserve to die and you deserve to live? Because the character of Sam's girlfriend never died in the original premonition. She wasn't going to die on the bridge. She was going to live regardless. So this character of Peter wants to take her life and everything, and just amazing type of stuff. And even you got someone like Courtney B. Vance here, who's a great, well-rounded talent too, just portraying the federal agent investigating all this stuff, and just is a better take on what they did in the first film with the cop plot. That obviously this is a completely different type of death sequence, everything at the beginning of the thing with the bridge collapse. So this character portrayed by Vance is doing a very interesting investigation that he believes there is something more, like a better word, hinky going on, something beyond explanation going on. So he's greatly intrigued by everything that's going on, and he's just trying to unravel it and not jump to shallow conclusions. It's very much a very well written character in that realm too, and just like everything just comes together so immensely well in this film that, again, it's surprising that the fifth film in a franchise, in my opinion, is the best one overall. Obviously other people would probably choose a different one. I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinions, obviously, but for me, this is the one that just hits everything on such the best level possible. I mean, the first film laid fantastic groundwork. I think this film just built on it in the absolute best way possible. Again, I think this is the best crafted, most substantive entry in this franchise, with a lot of very interesting things going on, with different twists and different revelations, and just how they weave the story is something that is less formulaic and more interesting. This film does it for me, absolutely. I'm just glad that it just still holds up that strongly for me. And it's a long road going through this franchise, but I kind of got through it, so it's interesting. I didn't see the first film or the fifth film in theaters, so the second, third, and fourth, and the fourth one killed it for me. But now it's like I came back and watched the film. It's like I would have wanted to see number 5 in the theater along with number 1. So I got in late and I crapped out early and saw most of the bad films in the theaters. So it's interesting, but decompress, slow down, because I know you guys got a lot to say about the Final Destination films, especially which ones are your favorites, which ones you do feel are the best ones, and especially which ones just didn't hit it off for you. Do you agree that the fourth film is the worst in the franchise, that it is the cheapest and the shallowest overall? Where you think, did certain ones, just like Final Destination 2, didn't hit it off because of the tonal change? Just let me know, guys. Post your comments below. It's a long road getting through this video, but I finally got it. And there's plenty more to come in Forever Horror Month. So I hope you guys stick around and still check out a whole lot of great other stuff too. So I'm going to take some rest. Thanks for watching, guys. Your thumbs up on the video if you liked what you saw here. It's extremely well appreciated. And spreading the links around, the comments, all that kind of stuff. Highly, highly appreciated. So like having you guys here. I hope you stay here and check out more great stuff. So thanks for watching, and just let me know what you think about the Final Destination franchise, and I'll be back soon with more spooky and creepy stuff. So thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.